I said I'm going. Hello,
Hey there.
welcome to Real Talk. So Sergio, that sometimes happens. Um, and that's okay. I just when that happens, I just plug on. You know, we're just here to do a show.
When the well, yeah, I mean, the system is a bit slow to get started. I find that the
Yeah,
case sometimes. So,
yeah, and
hey,
and
we're
some
here.
and sometimes the intro doesn't. Did you hear the intro play? Because I did not.
Yeah, it did.
Oh, okay. Well, there you
It did.
go. Um,
All is well.
hey, guess what? We got Zombie Sergio here today.
Nice.
So Sergio, and
Yes.
we're not just referring to a single movie. In the history of zombie movies, all zombie movies,
hmm
which zombie can you most relate to?
Which film
Yeah, no,
or which
this
zombie?
zombie, like type of zombie. We've had slow zombies, smart zombies, dumb
Ah,
zombies, fast zombies. Now we have crawling sloth
yeah.
zombies. I don't know what.
Well, the ones that give me, as someone who is an avid lover of zombie cinema,
I know.
the ones that give me the most stress are
Yeah,
the running ones.
yeah. These
Anything
fast
that's too
zombies.
fast because on some zombies, I mean, if you go back all the way to George Romero's Night of the Living Dead, the
Yeah,
ultimate classic,
yeah,
those we could outrun those, right?
yeah, yeah.
White people didn't, you know. But no, as far as relate to and connect to, and
Who
which,
who are you? Who are you as a zombie? Who's your spirit zombie?
oh
Yeah,
gosh, do you remember there? It was Romero. I forget the title of his last zombie film. It was like in the early 90s, if I remember correctly.
he's
But it
had
was
more
the one
since.
where the zombies had started to have like sentience, like they'd started to be able to decision.
I think it
And
was
there
called
was
Land of the Dead. Maybe.
maybe, yeah, and
Yeah.
there was an actual lead zombie
Mm.
um character that, so that would have been, yeah, that's, wow, 2005. Okay, early
Yeah.
2000s.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one.
No.
The main zombie in that particular um film
Yeah.
was able to, you know, communicate with the
Hmm.
other zombies and get
Right.
them to do his will, sort of thing.
Right.
That's the one that in all the history of the zombie movies I've seen, not by no means the best film,
Yeah.
but as far as the one that I really dug
Yeah.
was that character
There you
in
go.
Land of the Dead.
Yeah, I'm probably most like, and if we go ahead and stretch the idea of zombie a little bit, I'm probably most like the Invasion of the Body Snatchers, Donald Sutherland at the end.
Okay.
Just kind of walking through life, just
Yeah.
kind of oblivious to everything, and then somebody like tries to reach out to me and I just scream at them. That's that's
That's a
probably
good
the one
one. That's a good one.
that I the one I relate to least is now featured in our feature movie for today, 28 years later,
Uh,
which would be the alpha zombie with a ginormous hog. That's the one that I
yeah.
just I just not that guy.
There's just no other way to describe it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was something. And the thing with this film, and I know we're going to get into it in detail, but it really challenged you to dig in, like to get into your zombie lore
Mm.
and decide, do I accept that this is where we are now?
Yes.
You know?
And part of that requires that you just kind of forget that 28 weeks later happened. Like
Seriously.
the the
Yeah.
the entire idea of 28 weeks later where it took 2 months for all of the zombies to starve to death,
Right.
all of them to starve to death, and now we're 28 years later and
Yeah.
yet we still have super healthy zombies not starving to death. So the idea of starving to death zombies just needs to
Gone.
go
Yeah.
gone out of the. So I'm hard pressed to call this a trilogy. We can go ahead and call it, a franchise, but it is not a trilogy.
No, not at all. And Danny Boyle has been very clear that this is the first of what will be 3 films.
Okay,
And
cool.
so,
Okay.
so yeah,
3?
I think somewhere along the way, Danny Boyle decided there's a better story here that we can tell, and
Yeah.
decided to just ignore.
And we get to show a giant hog. All right, so this movie is as you mentioned, it's the start of something bigger. And and but it starts out on this island feeling very small, like
Mhm.
isolated and apart from everything else that's going on. Although, and I'm skipping like the first 5 minutes, because the first 5 minutes is a callback to the day,
Right.
when zombies first arrived in the Highlands in Scotland. So
Right.
we'll assume it's not day one, but it's you know pretty close to, probably before the 28th day, I would
Right.
say. Um, and we see a scene it's shown in the trailers where there's the zombies start arriving, and there's a room full of children watching the Teletubbies. And that is called back later in the film, and so that's the only reason why I'm even bringing it up.
Boy, is
But
it.
what's that?
I said, boy, is it called back
Yeah.
later in the film.
So we're then fast forwarded to 28 years later,
Mhm.
and we find ourselves on this small island somewhere in Scotland. I mean, look, if you've ever seen a map of Scotland, there's a bazillion islands up there.
Right. Right.
So this could literally be just about anywhere, but it's a tiny little island that
Right.
had houses before, and so they were able to, people were able to maintain an existence on this tiny little island. And it's a small family of 3. The father, Aaron Taylor Johnson, is taking his son for his first foray onto the mainland, and his mother is clearly sick.
Right.
And so, trigger alert check on Sergio. How did you do with that? Like, was that problematic for you? Like,
No,
okay.
no. The setup of the film itself was pretty straightforward, and I really just wish that there was that we start with a great story to
Yeah.
tell.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And the way I look at this movie, and most movies are, they're most anything is, productions are not just movies. They're 3 acts to
Mhm.
everything, and this feels more like 2 completely separate movies,
Oh, absolutely.
with each of those 2 separate movies having their own 3 acts. So the first movie that we are presented with is this foray into the greater world. And act 1 set up, the son and the father and son are going. They need to kind of sneak out without the mom knowing, because it upsets the mom, who they need to keep calm and non-agitated. The
Right.
second act is them in like the idea is that the son needs to learn how to kill zombies, and
Mhm.
they set up that kids are practice shooting arrows and stuff, but this is like now they actually have to be in danger and in the thick of it, and see how the son reacts. And then we transition from act 2 to act 3, where things don't go super well.
Right.
And it's it's very scary.
Mhm.
I loved that. I loved the zombie action, but I also question, why is the like what's the where is the intent? Like, what's the need here? I selfishly wanted the action and enjoy it, but also looking at motivation for the characters, it's like, I mean, do they even need to be out there?
Right. One of the things that I thought is, as they were heading out, they obviously have this very well put together society.
Mhm.
Everything is running smoothly. I seem to remember that there was something said about, like, there's a crew that goes out to get wood.
Right.
I don't remember if that was they have to go to the mainland, which, because let's say it doesn't make sense because of some things that happened within that first half of the film where you're like, why would they send people into danger just to
I
get
know.
wood?
Yeah.
Because the overall thing here as I watched it, and then of course after it was over, I thought they needed to do that because they couldn't get the young man, the who really is the lead of the story.
Yes,
Um,
100%.
yeah, they had no way of getting him to the dilemma of the second half of the film, which
Right.
is how does he know about someone that he needs to find and
Right.
where that person is.
Right.
So I think that there what happens is you have that first half to use a Paulism. It could have been cut down.
Yeah.
It then didn't need to become that detailed,
Right.
other than to establish the danger of the mainland, that
Hmm.
there's something out there, meaning someone that is going to be part of the rest of the film. Um, but I think once they're on the mainland, the filmmakers are just like, oh, but we gotta really give them some action,
We got to
you
build this
know?
world like that.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
it's a lot of world building, but world building with action. Yeah.
Right. I almost think that this film, if there is going to be a trilogy,
Mhm.
could have been the first two of of a trilogy,
Interesting.
um, if it had been split out. Because and you end the first one
Yeah.
with them finding Ray
Okay.
Fiennes,
Okay.
and
Interesting.
then
Yeah.
I don't know. It was just
Yeah.
so jarring
Oh, wow. Okay.
in terms of you have this big, fantastic first half setup,
Hmm.
like you said, and I love that you're describing it as a three-part film in itself. And then you're like, oh, that's not the story.
That was not the story at all. The
Yeah.
story was that was
So why did
that
I go through all
story.
this stress?
That was that story. Well, because you need to do it again.
Right, right,
Because
right. Of course,
because
absolutely.
there's the first story, which is father and son, and then
Right.
there is the second story, which is mother and son.
Yes.
And what we find out is that the son, the son, the father and son see a large fire off in the distance while they're holed up in this rickety old house,
Hmm.
and it basically entrapped by the zombies, and the son is intrigued by that, and when he returns to the island, he finds out that that guy is actually a doctor, and he thinks that perhaps the doctor can help his mom.
Yeah.
um I mean, anybody knows what's going on with this mom. I mean, like, there's no question, but you realize that the kid has no idea,
Right.
and like,
And
and they
apparently
have.
neither does that group.
I The mother implies that she knew later.
Oh,
Later
okay.
in the movie, the mother implies that she knew, and she just didn't tell him, and she was hoping she could get somebody else to tell him, but
Well,
nobody would tell him.
what I mean is, I don't know that they knew what to call it
No,
because
interesting. So that's interesting. I wonder, like,
and here's did and the reason I say that is because my impression this that town took me back to The Village. M. Night
okay, sure,
Shyamalan.
sure.
Like, because I found myself wondering, okay, I wonder if, like, this being 28 years later, I mean, I stopped trying to do the math when I was like watching the film, but part of me was like, has enough time passed that they've been isolated on this island that they really haven't had any contact with the outside world to be able to know what to call stuff?
Well, but the people would. I mean, it's obvious. Like, in my mind, it's obvious, and I
Okay.
feel like there's enough older people,
Yeah. Yeah.
older
No, you're
people that
right.
they would know, and the mother even knows. Like, the mother says, I knew what I had,
Got
and
it.
I should have said something, and I didn't. And but how do you like, that's something that is, like, really difficult to explain to a kid that
Sure.
doesn't have, has to worry about survival, and doesn't need to worry about, you know long-term debilitating illnesses. It's
Right.
just like, you're
Especially when
probably
there's no
not
doctor.
right. Yeah, you're probably not living to die from a long-term debilitating illness, quite frankly, in this world. So
True. True.
getting to that point is like, oh my god, I lived this long. So the things that we're introduced to in this second half, beyond just the mother trying to stay cogent long
Hmm.
enough to travel, are one, pregnant zombies. which it's really funny because I went with a pair of roller derby friends, and one of the guy said before the movie, I just want a pregnant zombie. That's all I want. And like he was so happy when there was a pregnant
Before
zombie.
the film?
Before the film.
That's hilarious.
The other thing we're introduced to is you know, a Swedish dude who his patrol ship, which is patrolling to make sure that people are you know, not trying to get off of the island, off out of the UK. His ship crashes, and so he ends up on the island, and he's fucked. But you know,
Right.
you know, he is able to bring tales of modernity to these two people, including the internet and smartphones,
Right.
and women with duck lips, and
Yeah.
we really and we're introduced to Ray Fiennes, the doctor,
Yeah.
and all three of these things play such an interesting role in this movie.
Mhm.
You know, like obviously the Swedish guy introducing modernity is really funny and interesting, but also like really tragic and shocking because it's like, yeah, guys, the world did go on. Like
Right.
you wonder in this state, like, okay, what is missing now? You
Mhm.
know, so take to where we are today as a society writ large and say, where are we as a society without the UK? And guess what? It's not very different. Like,
Right.
you know,
Well,
um,
and I I have to say that's one of the things I'm glad they kept,
yeah.
that this is an isolated
Hmm.
thing,
Hmm.
where the end of 28 weeks was not the implication.
Yeah. The
You know,
implication was clear that Paris was about to
it
get
had begun to
overrun.
spread. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Um, I think that as the movie progresses, and I have to give you my take on this whole pregnant zombie thing. I
Okay.
have a theory
Sure.
that I think is going to come up in the second or third film, or maybe it won't. But I'm just I have to speak it so that it gets out of my head. I think that woman, we're going to find out, somehow was with either Ray Fine or someone we meet later in the film.
And
I
and was turned while pregnant.
Yes,
Okay.
because there's a large leap we have to make if this is zombie on zombie action,
Hmm.
you know? And
Well,
so,
I think we can assume that if there is zombie on zombie action and they're having they're having babies, the babies are not surviving.
well,
Like,
of course,
you know, like they're beyond, much beyond birth, you
right.
know?
But the fact that this baby is healthy tells me that we're going to find out later.
Yeah.
We're going to find out who the father was.
Okay. All right. I'm in. Like, let's find that out.
Yeah.
Um, and that, but let's deal with what we are presented with in the movie,
Yes, yes.
which is that as soon as Ray Fiennes shows up, like, so you know, like obviously the baby represents hope and
Yeah,
represents, hey, you know what, you know, even in this fucked up world, it happens all the time in sci-fi fantasy movies of the baby
of
represents
course.
hope, and so we get that, but we also get Ray Fiennes, who represents morbid reality,
Mhm,
and his memento mori, his collection of bones, and
mhm.
it's, oh man, I could spend a movie on that.
Well, and I think we're going to, in
You
some
think
way,
so?
because the
Okay.
sequel is 28 years later, The Bone Temple,
Oh, okay.
and that's what he has created.
Okay.
And so, and that's not a spoiler of any sort. I'm just saying
Sure.
that's
No,
Danny
that
Boyle's intent.
okay. And well, that's interesting because we're then
And that's coming
the
out next year, like early next year.
then the two sequels, one of them's going to be Ray Fine's story and the other's going to be the Teletubbies thing.
Uh,
Unless they try to tell both in the
right, yeah,
Bone
it's hard
Temple
to
thing,
say.
but
But the second film is already in the can.
right. Oh, it's in the can. I thought it was
It's
I thought they were like filming. Okay.
No, no, it's already been filmed. I
Okay.
mean, it may still need, post-production, some post-production, but it is
Sure.
set to release, I believe, in January.
Okay. Well, I'm in.
So,
We'll see you in January, I guess,
yeah.
because um but the Ray Fiennes character is just absolutely fascinating and terrific,
It really is.
and is the best and scariest and saddest possibility. I mean, like, and there's a moment where the young Spike, the our hero in the movie, the protagonist of the movie,
Mhm.
Has to come to reality, to come to the realization with the mortality of everybody and of society, and through the guise of his mother's mortality.
Mhm.
And and Ray Fiennes handles that, the character, the doctor, handles that so much better than anything his family could have done.
Sure.
Like, and it's man, I don't know if it's only because it's Ray Fiennes, or if it's just such a well-written part.
That's what I was gonna say. I mean, and again, you can't take anything away from Ray Fiennes. He's one of the best that we have in this generation.
Right.
But it is a very well written part. In fact, to me, that that becomes more of the heart of the film
Right.
than even the young man. What was the kid's name?
The character is Spike.
Spike. Yes, Alfie Williams is the young
Okay.
man's name. Fantastic actor.
Yeah.
And carries this film, but Ray Fiennes gives it heart. And the overall, that entire sequence gives me really, and I have a feeling that that's why they've already given so much information about the sequel. It releases January 16th, and guess who is going to reprise his role?
Ray Fiennes.
Well, no, absolutely, but I'm saying from the original film.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah, we're going to
Oh,
finally find out
I
where
didn't.
he has been.
I didn't. Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is
Man,
this is
you're
something.
way up on things than I am. Normally, that's the opposite way around.
Right?
Where
Yeah.
did you hear about that?
All several articles. Danny Boyle himself has interviewed about it and talked
Okay.
about it. And so when you know that, it makes a lot of what happens in this film easier to like deal with. If I hadn't known all that, I would have walked out of this theater going, "What just happened?"
Yeah.
Like, because I'm gonna I loved 28 Days. I was okay with 28 Weeks.
Yeah.
But it wasn't, I never thought I'd see a sequel.
Right.
The sequel is very head scratching, but I did like it. I enjoyed it very much. There's some great things that happen that are very entertaining.
Yeah.
But from an overall standpoint of what is this thing we just saw? I feel like Danny Boyle knows what the long-term picture is,
Mm-hmm.
but just doesn't do a great job of giving us something to cling to on this first one,
Interesting.
without walking away going, okay, what was I supposed to pay attention? I mean, I know what I thought. I think the central part of the story is the interaction of Ray Fiennes with the mother and the son. And I believe that was the most beautifully done part of the movie, when you
Yeah.
consider that many people would go, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to give too much away because again,
Well,
it's a good film.
it's look, it's a coming the film in its entirety is a coming of age movie.
Absolutely. I'm glad you
Okay.
said that, because yes.
So that's what it is.
Yeah.
Like let's not. It's a coming of age movie through the guise of a zombie movie.
Sure.
And Alfie is absolutely, Spike is absolutely the central character, which if somebody tried to guess, would never, with Judy Comer and Elio Tyler Johnson and Ray Fiennes in the mix, you would never assume that. Like before the movie started, you would never assume that. But the Spike, the actor who plays Spike, Alfie, is so fantastic.
Yeah.
In my mind, the movie absolutely works because they were able to put it on his shoulders, and he absolutely 100% delivered. And that is so hard to do.
Yeah.
It is so hard to find child actors that can deliver like this, and he does. And the Ray Fiennes stuff works because you're invested in Spike. And even though Spike does things that are just so stupid that it's like, yes, of course the kid's doing this stupid thing.
Yeah.
It's like he's he has to do this stupid thing. Like it's not the typical like, oh, of course the kid in the movie is doing the stupid thing.
No,
It's
no.
this kid in the movie is doing a stupid thing, and this is exactly what a kid would do. You know, like
Right. Well, yeah, no, the stupid decisions he makes are are done with the right motive and intent.
right.
And so you and I go, "No, don't go there." And
Yeah.
he goes, but you're like, "But he's doing it for his mom," you know?
Yeah.
It's like that
Yep.
so I mean, this is a kid who's 14 playing 12.
Yeah.
I'm not a parent, so I don't really know what if there's even a difference at that point in their age. But you really, really the 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 weight of this film in terms of the audience reaction for someone like myself,
Mm-hmm.
I'm always taken in by a good coming of age story.
Sure.
Add zombies in the mix, fantastic. But then you get such a like this film wasn't just it was yes, it was his coming of age, but then having to like take in things that no kid at that age should have to,
Yeah.
and everything, and trying to even begin to fathom what Ray finds is there and what he's doing and why.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just I thought it was beautifully done. But I don't know who this kid is. If he has anything else on his filmography, I'm looking.
Mm.
His Dark Materials,
Oh,
which
okay.
is a series,
Yeah.
and a film called New Breed of Criminal. And that's it.
Yeah.
This is his third major project, and I mean, kudos Alfie Williams, because when you can stand in front of Ray Fiennes and match, in this moment in this film. I mean, come on, this is a
And he
rare
does.
moment.
And he does. And he
Yeah.
does. And you really get the idea that it helps that the character that Ray Fiennes is playing is a character who genuinely wants to nurture and care
Mhm.
and bring forward the the realities of this situation, because the realities of this situation were huge and just as big as the reality of putting the start of a new trilogy on the shoulders of a 14-year-old.
Sure.
And they have a supporting cast that absolutely helps pull them forward and pull the story forward, and it so works. It's
Yeah.
so and then there's the coda, and so
Yeah.
and we got to talk about it because
Yeah,
it's
we do.
insane. So the coda is that Spike drops the baby off at his island and says, "Hey, look, sorry guys, I got to go do this on my own for a little
Right.
bit." Which again is just like, kid, you do not have to go do it on your own, but okay, whatever. Like,
Well, I
if
think it's
that's what you
because of
want to
what he witnessed his father doing
do.
in the
Well,
beginning.
but
Like,
yeah, no, I
it's
mean,
it throws off his entire.
yeah,
I mean, I bought that as the motive for him to go, you know what? I don't want to be here.
right.
I got to go figure this out, because he's
Yeah.
had this profound experience with, Ray Fiennes.
Yeah, and his mother, and
Of course.
understanding the importance of life and death.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, he's out on his own and he encounters another, we'll call it village.
Yes.
And they're a village of colorful tracksuit wearing bleach blonde ninjas. And one of the
My thought was
characters,
not bleach blonde ninjas. My thought was these are the solid gold dancers. What's going on here?
for sure. Okay, so like they're wearing
Yeah.
tracksuits straight out of a Guy Ritchie 1990s London
Absolutely.
crime film.
Yeah.
We find out that one of the characters is Jimmy, who
Mhm.
there are hints to Jimmy throughout the movie,
Early on.
like throughout, not just early on, but throughout. There's graffiti throughout the area.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
That makes references to Jimmy. And so Jimmy is, I'm just going to say, he appears to be, you get the feeling that he's some kind of cult-like character.
Mhm.
And then you find out that it's the Jimmy from the start of the movie.
Yep.
And he wears an Adidas tracksuit. And he's wearing blue, and he's got one that's, he's got friends, and they're all bleached blonde, and one's in green, one's in red. There's both, and they have a very unique way of dealing with the zombies, to the point that it is a completely different, like, this is the third movie, and it's only it's only 5 minutes, and it sets up a sequel, and the sequel is going to be absolutely nothing like what we just watched. Like, there's, like, if they do a Ralph Fiennes, prequel sequel, like, give us the story of Ralph Fiennes, for 28 months before, 28 years later, and then the 28 days after, 28 years later, like, that's a movie that will feel exactly like what we just watched. If the sequel is this gang and with Spike involved, it's just going to excuse me, it's just going to feel like a totally different thing.
I don't want to, again, I'm only going based on the information I know. Given the cast, Paul, I think it's the second thing. I think it's going to be the second that you're describing.
Right. Okay.
Which is interesting because, again, the tone of this thing would have to change.
It would have to change
very dramatically. In fact, I'm getting Mad Max Thunderdome vibes. Like, it's going to be way more cartoonish.
For sure. For going from Road Warriors to, yes, 100%, or going from, even like, well, it's more drastic than that. I was going to say going from Temple of Doom to Last Crusade, but I mean, it's even more drastic than that. Like,
right. No, I get it.
It's just a complete and totally different, tonally, it is a just complete and totally different movie, which, cool, let's do that. Let's just do that thing and see what that's like. And man,
I mean, it's the same writer, it's the same well, no, it's going to be a different director. It is a different director. Costa is directed the second installment. Not a name I'm familiar with off the top of my head. But yeah, but it's still Alex Garland, who is the author of both the original and this one that we're talking about.
Okay. So she made the Marvels, the Marvel movie, The Marvels.
Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah. So
in 2021's Candyman.
Yeah. Look, I'm intrigued.
No, absolutely. For all the weirdness, I'm in. January 16th, I'm there.
Because there's no color in any of these movies, but there is so much color with the Jimmy tribe.
Oh, absolutely.
I just need to know how they keep their Adidas tracksuits, like,
at pristine all condition.
Like, what is going on? The only explanation that I will accept is that they actually found, like, an Adidas tracksuit factory or something,
an outlet,
and just grabbed all the Adidas tracksuits and we're like, this is what we're doing.
I don't know if this is the right correlation, but I had such strong Tarantino vibes, Guy Ritchie vibes, like you said. I had
the Guy Ritchie vibes,
that it was like, okay.
Yeah.
But not a bad okay.
Yeah, and just completely unrelated to anything, but the conversation that in the conversation we had with my friends that I saw it with afterwards, one of the things that I said was, so obviously the colors that they're wearing is a callback to the Teletubbies. I feel like, given the way they interacted with the zombies, it would have been so much cooler if they had been watching Mighty Morphin Power Rangers instead, because that would kind of explain what we're watching, because there's no explanation for what we're watching.
Not at all.
Like, it's a coda, and it is so jarring that I'm looking forward to talking to you about it in January. When are we going to see you again? Oh, wait, actually, we have to do ratings.
Yes. But before we get to ratings, just real quick.
Yeah.
I have to comment on this. This film does some pretty amazing things with sound. And music. If ever there was a film that I feel used music and sound to such a jarring and disturbing effect, it's the first half of this film. Especially that, and these weird cut-ins, by the way. So, of that older film, the whatever it was that
Right.
that was cut in.
Like Robin Hood
Yeah, there was just some
and yeah.
really
Yep.
interesting editing done
Yeah.
that I had to I have to know, Paul, did any of it
So
stand out to you, or did you have any
well,
sort of thought toward that?
it yeah, I mean, it was obviously they were trying to bring forth the allegory that they're going for, which is
Yeah.
this entire thing is an allegory for England by and large, not just it's not
Oh,
just a
okay.
straight up zombie film, and where that island is post Brexit England, and they're isolated and they're going it alone, and it's dangerous to go outside
Yeah,
of the island, and making all of the callbacks be references to you know England during empire building times,
right,
and
right.
and that is the island going out and marching onward, and it's
You bring
the
so
Rudyard.
much more depth to it than I'd ever do. So,
Yeah, and the Rudyard Kipling poem that is
yeah.
read, that is, and using the Rudyard Kipling poem in as a backdrop against World War II footage, and it's just like, it's all really, really in depth, in depth symbolism, and building that sort of allegorical connections,
Yeah.
and the reality is that when the first movie came out, it was shortly after 9/11, and so there was a lot of undertones of what happens now, with rage driving societies, and now it's like what happens now with having to isolate yourself, and,
Yeah.
and it's just, so there are connections to be made.
Yeah, absolutely. Very interesting.
Okay, here at Real Talk, we do tacos instead of stars. Sergio set that up. Thank you, Sergio. We carry it on. If we feel like something deserves a little extra, instead of doing a half a taco like you would do a half a star, we add guac. Why? Because nobody eats to have a fucking taco. So Sergio, where do you land on this one?
This was a tough one because I really enjoy a lot of what was done within the film itself. So giving it 3 is too simple. That would be, because it for me is worth a rewatch, and it did leave me curious for what's to come.
Mm-hmm.
So I do believe, based on the very creative nature of the story, not to mention the creative use of both sound and even editing, there's some interesting decisions made on the action.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to give this one a solid 4 tacos. No guac,
Okay.
but 4 tacos. And now I need the second one to pay off.
Yeah.
So
I am going to give this the benefit of the doubt and assume the second one does pay off, and so I'm giving it 4 plus guac.
gotcha.
I came out of the movie almost thinking I might go 5 tacos, but I'm not there. I'm not quite
Gotcha.
there. But by the way, just so you know, I gave Life of Chuck 5 plus guac. So I don't
Okay.
know if you're still
Yeah,
sitting on
I
the
got to get
fence
to
on
that.
going to see that, but go watch that movie, damn it.
I will. I will.
But this is 4 tacos plus guac.
Nice.
I love the original, is one of my all-time favorite horror movies, and I really left the movie thinking, did I like this one more than the original?
Mm,
I think it's more consistent. There are aspects, like, because I just rewatched the original, and watching it like 20 years later, there are aspects of the original that are a little it being shot on an early digital camera. It's the
sure.
quality of the film is really, really piss poor. There are weird musical choices during
Yeah.
interludes that are like like, this doesn't really quite fit, but okay, cool. And this movie feels more consistent, but also it does. I feel like it doesn't quite have the depth that the first one has, as much as this one actually. The third act of the second movie, if you take the movie having 2 halves,
Yeah.
the sixth act, we'll call it, is so deep and so fantastic,
Yeah.
that's where I give the guac to. So
Gotcha.
yeah.
All right.
All right, Sergio. Thank you so much for coming out again.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always a pleasure. Maybe we'll discuss offline definitely Superman, but I'm gonna see what you think about doing Jurassic World. So
Oh, I'm there for Jurassic World. If you want to
awesome.
come on, you know where to find me.
I will definitely find you then.
Okay, cool.
All right. Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Sergio.
Bye bye.
Bye. And that leaves me to talk about Elio, the latest release from Pixar, and sadly, the worst performing Pixar release ever. And I say that in all earnestly, sadly, because this movie is a sincere kids movie. And so Pixar makes yeah, in my mind, Pixar makes two kinds of movies. They make pure kids movies. Well, most of what they make, and let's go backtrack. Most of what they make are family movies, and by family movies, I mean like In and Out and Up and Wall-E, movies that entertain the whole family, that have deep rich layering. Soul's another good one. Deep rich layering that goes beyond what little kids are going to get, but has enough fun for the little kids that it works for every layer. And then they make kids movies which frequently work for adults to an extent, but are clearly just really driving towards kids. The Good Dinosaur, Cars is a perfect example. Cars is just a flat out kids movie. And here we have Elio, and I feel like Elio falls in that category, but it's it's one of the better ones of that type of Pixar movie, and it makes me sad that it didn't do well. But also Disney did this to themselves by releasing Pixar movies straight to streaming for years and years and years, and then starts releasing them in theaters and expecting people to show up, and nobody knows what's going on, and so they don't show up. I loved this movie. It's it mid Pixar, yes, but the top of Pixar is so freaking amazing and so stellar that being mid Pixar, like being just like a mid tier Pixar, is like, holy crap, that's a fantastic film, and holy crap, this is a fantastic film. I hope that in week 2 and week 3 it outperforms the How to Train Your Dragon remake, not because I've seen the How to Train Your Dragon remake, but because I want original movies to do better than remakes. All right, that's just the reality. For fuck's sake, people, take your kids to go see original shit. All right, 4 tacos. Go see Elio. It's so good. Lastly, we're going to do Deep Cover, which is a release on Prime, starring Bryce Dallas Howard. And the elf from Lord of the Rings, Orlando Bloom. Bryce Dallas Howard is an American living in London, running an improv troupe, like just kind of giving improv classes, basically. And she gets recruited by a cop to be stand-ins for undercover cops to help break a ring of people selling fake cigarettes. And she brings in 2 of her students, who happen to be the only 2 available and the worst 2 students. And Orlando Bloom plays like a struggling actor who's been in one pizza commercial and is terrible. Just an over actor, thinks himself like a modern day Pacino type of thing. And another guy who is just like a computer programmer, and it just shows up almost on accident to the class. And we see him not being able to interact with his coworkers, being socially awkward. And so this movie is just an entire, 2 hours of, oh my God, what the fuck are they doing? Oh my God, what the fuck are they doing? And it's funny, like that. It's, it's not great, but it is funny, but it's also in parts not funny. This movie is a what the fuck, and the mileage may vary depending on who you are. I'm giving it 2 tacos plus guac. I have no interest in ever seeing this movie again, but I did enjoy myself for probably like 60% of the time. So if somebody said, hey, should I watch it? I'd be like, I mean, do you want to watch something dumb that is, where it's like, oh, holy shit, this is Orlando Bloom? Then yeah, this is the one. All right, that's all we got for you today. Next week we're coming back. It'll just be me, and it'll be on a Tuesday. So thank you for Sergio for making himself available. I hope everybody has a wonderful week. Go see movies.